Good day, everyone. We've got about 35 people to get into the nutrition coaching session today. So we're going to give it a minute or two and we'll get everybody on. I'll just enjoy the sunshine here on the balcony, as I hope you're all doing as well. Let me just check. We got a couple of messages coming in here. Get some more heads on. There you go. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your sessions this morning or at lunchtime. Gotta talk about nutrition pretty soon. That's the important part. That's where it's all at. That's what makes the magic happen. There you go. Filing the nails there. Gotta look good, Alison. Well done. I like a bit of multitasking, learn about nutrition. Get the look now.
I'm devastated. Have to make them all.
This is it.
Priorities.
Cool. We got a couple more heads in here. This is a lot more casual. Maybe we should have some drinks. I feel. Should we have drinks? As long as you log in MyFitnessPal, have a wine. Alrighty, we give another couple of minutes. Got 20 more people to get on, and then we'll kick off. Let me just double check. I'm recording this as well. Anyways, this is gonna go up online later on. So I'll run through kind of like the format, what we're gonna do, and stuff like that once we got everybody in, and then we can kick off. The virtual world, ain't it fun? I can see a real person outside. Feels weird. I want to see them on a screen. All right, we got a few more heads to get in here. There we go. Cool, we got Bridget on there too. Hiya.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. We still got another maybe 10 people left to get on to the call, but they're all joining in now. This is like the most on time people have ever been. All right, let me get a few more heads in, and then what I'm going to do, Bridget, is I'm going to pin your screen. So I'm going to make you like the main person. You won't be the host. I'll be the host. I can control.
No.
Yeah, but I'll pin you so everyone can see you. Yeah. Quick question for everyone who's on already. Have you followed Bridget on Instagram yet? And if not, why not? Part of the requirements. Some delicious recipes on there.
Instagram.
Even if you don't have Instagram, you don't have it, you have to now go and download it, regardless of your views on social media, or your membership will be cut off. Simple. So I think today's hot topic is really gonna be calories, isn't it? It's week 1, so it's all about the calories. So let's have a look. We got 25 in. We got about 7 more people left to join. We'll give it another 60 seconds and then we'll sort of kick off. So I'll just kind of run everything who's on there. The format we're going to do is I've got a couple of questions that are kind of like quite general questions that people would tend to ask me when they're doing the challenge. So I know the answers to these already, but I'm going to ask Bridget because she's the pro and she's going to give us a few more insights than I would probably have, given that she's a nutritionist. I am not. And then what we're going to do is if you've got questions and stuff like that, if you want to chuck them in the chat box so we can kind of like ask during, or else what you can do is at the sort of when we covered sort of like the main topics for week 1, you can jump in with some questions at the end as well, if that sounds good. So it's 2 minutes past 2, so we're gonna I suppose kick off now. I'll keep letting people into the meeting as we go. But the first question I got for you, Bridget, is calories. Why should we track them? What's the point? Why? Let me get you off mute. There you go. Now you're vocal.
I missed the start of that question, Ryan. What's the point of calories?
Calories. Why should we track them? What's the point? Because it's one of the things that people find the hardest when they start out tracking the calories. But give us the reasons. Tell me why we need to track the calories.
I'm not gonna get like technical about it.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the simplest way to answer that is it lets you know what's in your food. So people just eat all day and they have no idea whether they're in a deficit, whether they're in a surplus, whether they're in a maintenance, because they just don't really know what's in your food, what's in their food, and that takes quite a long time to learn. You know, even when I'm making recipes now, I still have to kind of log the recipe to actually fully understand, say, what a serving size would be calorie wise. You know, it's kind of a way to almost hold yourself accountable to what goes into your body. Like, that is the simplest way that I would say to log your calories. And then obviously that is what leads to your goals. So if you want fat loss goals, you know, you have to eat in a deficit. If you want muscle gain goals, you have to eat in a surplus. If you're happy out where you are, you have to eat maintenance. Calories are essentially what dictate that. So calories are just energy. That's all they are. And the energy you get from food is what dictates how your body looks. Simple as that, pretty much.
Okay, perfect. So we obviously on the 28-day challenge or any the 6-week challenge, calories and their calories on a platform. Do you want to run through just like the general process of calculating your calories, or the way you would do it with your clients? Because I know it's similar to ours. Like what should people be doing when it comes to calculating their calories?
So we pretty much, you are breaking up a little bit, but I got the gist of that. So we pretty much use the same method. You use the calorie calculator. I use a kind of a similar calorie calculator, but you essentially just, it's kind of calculated off you as a person. So your age, your weight, your activity levels, your height, and then that is kind of gives you kind of an average benchmark as to where you should be at. So a maintenance level, if you want to drop, say, to quite a moderate deficit, you'd have to be on a calorie deficit of about 10%, which is about 200-300 calories less than your maintenance. If you want muscle gain and that's the goal, you should be aiming for like 200-300 above that. So you essentially just input all your information into your calorie calculator, you get your calories, and then you manually input that into MyFitnessPal. And yeah.
Okay, perfect. We've got a good question from Connor in around like having all your protein in one meal. So I know the answer to this, but should you have all of your protein in one meal? If not, how would you advise splitting it up?
No, you shouldn't. For optimum absorption of protein, you should split it up as best you can throughout the day. I know this isn't always possible. Some people, they physically, say if they only eat 2 meals a day, or they intermittent fast, so therefore their first meal is at lunch, they have to cram the protein into those 2 meals. Like, it's not the end of the world, but in order for your muscles to get the most benefit out of protein, you should be spacing it out across 3 meals ideally, and a snack. So how you would do this is you look at your target and you essentially just divide that by 3 or by 4. So say if you eat 3 meals a day, divide your calorie goal by 3 and try and get that into each meal. So 30 grams, 20 to 30 grams, 20 would be on the low side. 30 grams plus would be optimum, especially if you're trying to hit 40%. And then if you get really, don't like look at it too strictly. If you find that you really struggle to eat a high protein breakfast, then you can have a lower protein breakfast, and then you can have a mid-morning snack that's quite high protein to kind of balance out that protein. Or else you can just divide the majority of the protein between your next 2 meals. It's not the end of the world, but it is optimum to try and divide it out as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something I would definitely do myself. I usually have like my protein shake in the morning. Then lunchtime, I'll have more, like turkey burgers, eggs and stuff like that. Dinner will be protein. And then if I'm missing that final bit of protein in the evening. I might have another protein shake or after a workout, just spacing it as well. So that structure is kind of what I follow as well.
Or some yogurt with some powder in it, and some fruit and nuts, as a little dessert.
Yeah, absolutely. Delicious. All those recipes can, of course, be found over on Bridget's Instagram profile if you haven't followed already. What you doing? This is a question that I literally get asked all the time and have done for almost 10 years now, but is the time you eat your meals important? And if I can ask the question, can we ask that question in context of a calorie deficit and in the context of a calorie surplus?
Okay, this could be controversial because we may not agree here. In relation to fitness, it is important, but in relation to overall goals, it really isn't. Do you agree? So in terms of fitness, there's certain macros that you should be prioritizing post certain types of fitness. But it depends how serious you are. So for the likes of strength training, you should be getting protein in quite quickly in order to absorb that the most efficiently. So people say as quickly as 15 minutes after a strength training session, you should be trying to get protein in. Depends how seriously you take your strength training, and how much you want recovery. In terms of cardio, you should be getting carbs in, prioritizing carbs post a cardio session. So protein is also important, but carbs are the most important. So you should be getting those in anytime between 1 or 2 hours post exercise. I know people are just like, if you don't get it in post an hour, it's useless. That's not true. You're still going to absorb it. It's just, it is optimum to get it in as close to that kind of exercise window as possible. But no, in terms of general exercise aside, in terms of when you eat your meals, so like say this whole like eating after 6 o'clock, does that equal fat gain, all that kind of stuff, that's all nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100% agree with you. Like the time of day doesn't really affect it. Like I lived in Spain for a year. We ate dinner at 10 o'clock every day. Did I put on extra weight for eating late? No, of course I didn't.
No.
That didn't work. So I think a lot of people, when they initially come to train at Movement, most people are looking for, for being honest, aesthetics versus performance when they start. So it's really about hitting those calories and then, later on in a 28-day challenge or 6 week. However, once people have been training with us for a while, they're actually looking at calorie consumption, protein consumption for performance. And that's where they'd need to heed that advice as to when to consume your protein and your carbs. So again, if anyone is looking for more performance-based results and they have questions on the nutrition, it's a little bit more complex. So feel free to DM me or send me an email and we can get you some more clear information. So another question we have up here, if you don't get your protein goals, should you go over your calories to get protein in? I'm guessing I think this is from Alison, who I think your goal is a deficit at the moment to drop some body fat. So in relation of a deficit, should you go over calories to get your protein goals in?
No.
Over to you.
No, it's not necessary. You can make up the protein the next day. It doesn't, one day not hitting your protein goal isn't going to affect all your progress. You just have to look back over your diary and just look at all your meals and just see, why didn't I hit it in each meal today? Or could I have added a snack in? Could I have so what I find really helpful is, in the premium version of MyFitnessPal, it essentially tells you after each meal you've logged how much protein you've logged. But if you don't have the premium version, you just have to scroll down to the bottom of your food diary, click on nutrition, and it comes up with the protein for each meal. So if you keep an eye on this after each meal you've logged, you'll have an idea of whether you've hit your goal or how far away you are from your goal. Because I think some people, they log their whole day, and then at the end they go in and go, oh shit, I haven't hit my protein. Whereas you can actually look through as the day goes and just go into the nutrition, work out where you are. Say if it's 6 o'clock in the evening, you fancy like a little dessert, whip yourself up a mousse, with yogurt and powder, if you have it, obviously. Have some cottage cheese on a rice cake, before you go to bed. I know a rice cake sounds really depressing, but something to kind of up that protein. Even just a normal yogurt, or quark or something like that, So no, I wouldn't suggest going over your calories just to hit protein, because protein is still calories. So even though protein is probably the best macro for fat loss, it still is calories. It still has the same amount of calories per gram as carbs does. So there's no point in being like, okay, I'm going to go into a surplus today just to hit my calories, when you can always make that up later in the week. In saying that, if you do decide to go into a surplus, it's an overall calorie intake for the week rather than the day, as Ronan, as you've explained. So if you do go over a day or two, it's absolutely fine so long as you balance out for the week and you actually stay in under your weekly calories.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's the reason we do that on a 28-day or a 6-week challenge is actually psychological, because people feel if they don't hit a daily goal that they've failed. Whereas we know we've got a weekly goal with our calories. So if you know, you're over one day because you've got something on, you've had a few drinks on the weekend, that's fine. You can balance it out, and then we track Friday to Friday because people tend to consume more calories on the weekend. So yeah, that's a really good point. So don't go over on your calories to hit your protein goals. If you miss it one day, that's totally fine. Cool. So Aaron asked here about supplements as well. So supplementary protein is fine, I assume, i.e. powders, shakes, as long as it's sole source. So what's your thoughts on the supplements versus the whole foods, Bridget?
As long as it's what? Sorry, what was the last bit?
It's not your sole source of protein. So the only source of protein in your diet.
That is, you pretty much answered your own question there. It's pretty so what I always suggest is to always prioritize single ingredient protein items. So, you know, the likes of chicken, eggs, yogurt, turkey, fish, anything that's a single ingredient, prioritize that as your source of protein. But there is absolutely no harm in adding the likes of whey or pea protein or anything else as another way to hit your protein. It is essentially the same as just eating a chicken breast. I think people have this negative connotation of protein powder that, first of all, you can only eat it if you're like mad into fitness and weightlifting. And second of all, that it's full of sugar and full of other things that are bad for you. It's predominantly just whey, which is a form of like lactose. So it's pretty much having a scoop of protein in the morning is like having chicken breast in the morning. It's just not as pure because it's been processed to that form. So for the likes of me, I eat protein porridge every single morning. Like there's definitely probably a more whole source that I could be eating, such as like eggs on toast or something, but I like protein porridge, so I'm going to keep eating protein porridge, and I might have another scoop in the evening. It's just, I think people get into the habit of like, if they find it really hard to hit protein, they'll just add in like scoops for every single meal, instead of reaching for the real single ingredient sources. So just try and just be conscious of it, I guess. Just be conscious of the amount you're actually consuming, and try and aim for kind of whole, fresh foods as much as possible. But it's absolutely completely fine to supplement with whey protein.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, the way I'd use it as well. I think one of the things I like to teach in the program is sustainable eating to start. So you need to give people a program that they can stick to. And if you're doing a 28-day challenge, a 6-week challenge, you want to get in shape, build muscle, lose fat, whatever it is, finding that balance to start for the first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks is the best way to do it. If getting protein shakes into your diet means that's the way you're going to do it, that's going to allow you to be sustainable and hit your targets. What I've noticed with my clients is over time, they progressively get what we'll call like healthy or make healthier choices and start to consume more whole foods. So you need to do it at that sort of pace. Good answer. Cool. Another one here just from Tracy. She's wondering if there's any specific type of protein supplements or powders that you would recommend. Maybe if you know some like kind of whey-based versions or some plant-based versions.
So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not an expert in plant-based. I've heard, so in terms of whey, I order from My Protein. They yeah, I just think they're the best. They have the most flavors. Bulk powders are also quite good. I don't order from them as much because I find My Protein is just the one I reach for, but to be honest, both are kind of on par in terms of quality. I've heard, however, that the vegan alternative My Protein do aren't great. So I can have a look after this and just do a little bit of a benchmark, because I know my housemate is vegan and she buys a vegan protein, so I can get back to you in the group or whatever afterwards. But in terms of like stuff, I definitely am not going to recommend something that I'm not sure about. But definitely my protein for actual whey, and also just all other supplements, and they always have a sale. They like permanently have a sale.
That's their business model. They say it on sale, but that's the price they actually get. Sales marketing tips here too, guys.
Into that though.
I know. It's exactly how ASOS work as well. Anyway, there was every time on sale. Bye. Cool. So that was there's one brand that I have heard recommended quite a lot by people I know. A friend of mine, Libby Babette, over in Australia, who's quite big on the fitness scene. She did like the My Biggest Loser program. She's got a couple of gyms and stuff like that. She recommends Sun Warrior as a plant-based brand, and a lot of her clients would have that. But yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback either next week or in the group on what some of the other friends, people you know, are taking plant-based. Nadia asked about what time should the last meal of the day be, but I think we've sort of answered that question already.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, exactly, as long as you're hitting your targets. Okay, so another one here, which is on the same vein, but one I get asked about a lot. So if you're aiming for a calorie deficit, should you avoid late night carbs?
It really doesn't matter. So it's kind of in line with what I was saying earlier, in regards to the whole no carbs after 6 p.m. kind of thing. So the reason that the fitness industry kind of promote that whole message, you know, that negative kind of message, is because they associate eating past a certain time as essentially snacking, and people tend to reach for low quality snacks instead of high quality snacks. So people tend to kind of binge on crisps and chocolate and biscuits kind of late at night rather than like a load of fruit, you know. But you see, how you have to look at it is a fruit is a carb, vegetables are carbs. You know, there's complex carbs, and then there's not non-complex carbs, which are kind of like sugary carbs, which you'll find in the likes of like chocolate and crisps and everything. But carbs are good for you. So much like protein, it's just a macro. The reason that people are kind of scared about carbs, I think, is because it's easy to overeat them. So the likes of bread and things like that, you know, they're really comforting. So pasta, you really do have to kind of measure them out, because otherwise you just could end up eating way more than you think. But in terms of actually eating them at a certain time, it really doesn't matter, especially outside of performance and fitness. Like you were saying earlier, you know, if fitness and stuff is the goal, you know, you should have your carbiest meal after you've worked out, and then keep the other meals kind of slightly less carby. But in terms of actually cutting carbs out of your meals outside of your exercise window, that's not necessary. That's not really necessary. It can aid with fat loss goals, because protein is the most satiating macro. So it's important to kind of prioritize protein in order to kind of stop you snacking and to stop you being hungry in between meals and to kind of keep you full. But like as Rowan has reiterated in the videos, carbs and fats can be manipulated however way you want outside of that 40%. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. That's my personal opinion. Some people have different opinions. But
those people are wrong. So no, just I suppose from years of doing this and years of working with different clients, eating carbs late at night doesn't matter, but it is definitely a perception that eating late at night or eating a certain type of food late at night will have a negative effect on your body. If anything, it won't. Sometimes when I'm doing muscle gain, I actually have I save quite a lot of carbs for the nighttime, and there's little reason behind this. It's a based reason. It's actually a sleep-based reason. So I get quite tired when I eat a lot of carbohydrates. So if I'm having dinner later at night and I want to have a good light sleep, because sleep is so important to get results, I will have some carbs late at night, like maybe some pasta, some potatoes. I'm just lethargic and sleepy, and it helps me drift off. So from a muscle gain perspective, it actually can be quite. Andrew asked what your Instagram profile is. I'll share that in the group later on. What's your opinion on low-fat food? Would that help with losing weight?
I mean, it's quite a broad question, because food that is generally advertised and marketed as low fat, what the taste is made up for in excess sugar. So I tend to avoid things that actually say low fat, and because they are generally subbing that ingredient with something else that's not great, if you know what I mean. So, you know, the likes of, like, say if you see a 0% fat yogurt, that actually is 0% fat. But if you see something that's specifically marketed as being low fat, then it genuinely isn't. You have to really read into the nutritional information at the back to see kind of how many sugars are in place of that. Because basically you'll have carbohydrates and then you'll have of which sugars. And if those sugars fall kind of in the kind of over 10 grams region, then that's generally a really, really sugary item. I generally say to not go above like the 6 or 7 grams of which sugars, because it depends on the serving size. But say if the serving size is really small, like 30 grams, and then like 10 grams of that is sugar, it's not great, you know? Mm-hmm. So low fat is the reason that people demonize fat, is because it's the most calorie dense macro compared to protein and carbs. So with protein and carbs, there's 4 calories per gram, whereas with fat, there's 9 calories per gram. So fat in general, it's just a more calorie dense macro. It doesn't, eating fat doesn't equal fat on your body, if you know what I mean. Well, I know you know what I mean, but like it's that's the best way, that's the best kind of way I can say it. Like, don't when you go food shopping, don't just kind of reach out for things that are kind of low fat, because the majority of things are low fat. They're just not being shouted about, you know?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So actually, I suppose that even goes back to the the principles of weight loss and muscle gain, and even sustainable eating. Like, if the low-fat food is something that you do like and you want to incorporate it into your diet because you enjoy it and it's within your calorie range, there's no harm in having it in your diet, provided you're hitting your calories, you're hitting your protein. However, as Bridget's pointed out, there's definitely healthier choices. So I think it's really, you have to put the onus on yourself to read the labels, understand what's going in there, have they substituted fat for sugar, etc. But you know, if there's something that you do like and it's sustainable, it's all right to have it in there. It's not gonna kill you. It's not gonna be damaging. But over time, like I said, I see my clients make what we would perceive as healthier choices. And what I mean by that is they're going for more whole foods that they know fit in with their calories. Aaron's made a really good point here. He's found about the vegan powders. They're really good. Vegan protein, if anyone wants to try that out. Cool. Okay, so one of the girls here was asking, I'm struggling to hit my weekly calorie target. I'm not as much proteins, and I end up with very low protein and calories. Any tips to hit the calorie goals and hit the protein goals? I suppose before we answer that, Elisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're going for a calorie deficit, because we'd need to know the context of that to answer that question. So we'll answer in the context of a calorie deficit to lose a bit of body fat. So she's under eating. What are your goals to hit target? Oh,
under eating, as in struggling to hit the deficit.
Not hitting the deficit, not hitting the calorie goals.
Okay. My main tip for that is to just say, if you're putting together your breakfast and you always have 2 eggs on toast, like poached eggs, boiled eggs, or whatever, turn that into a scrambled egg and throw in 2 egg whites. You won't even notice that the volume of food has increased, but the calories will have, and the amount in that meal will have. The same as if you're having some yogurt and you're used to having 100 grams, just, you know, up it by 50 grams, up it by 150 grams. Or like oats, you know, I've noticed a lot of people, they have such a small portion of oats. They have like 20 to 30 grams of oats. it's like throw 50 grams in there, you know, like I'm sure if you go over your carb intake for the day a tiny bit, but you stay within a deficit, that's absolutely fine. So long as you hit your protein and so long as you actually hit that target, that deficit. I think it's more about, like, you don't want to start horsing food into you, because then it's not gonna be sustainable for you. I think you just have to it's a bit of a trial and error. You need to start putting meals together and working out kind of the overall calories for that meal. So if you start to log meals and they're only coming up as like 200, 300 calories, that's essentially a snack. You know, that's not really going to be satiating. That's not going to be enough food to constitute a meal. So just start kind of looking up, like I have a ton of recipes on my Instagram, and also MyFitnessPal have this new feature where they have a ton of recipes in there. They have a library of recipes as well. Start looking them up by category: high protein meals, high carb meals, high calorie meals, and just start thinking, can I recreate that? You know, and I find that's probably the easiest way of actually hitting a goal if you struggle. But then, as Ronan touched on earlier, don't get too fixated on all the food in the day having to be super, super, super healthy, because then you really will struggle to hit your target. So say if you are under eating and you're like, oh, I'd love a bar of chocolate right now, and I know it fits within my calories, but I know it's also bad for me, just ignore that, just eat it. You know, just like, if it brings your calories up, just eat it. Like, eat intuitively, kind of listen to your hunger, listen to what you want. If you don't eat that bar of chocolate, as soon as this challenge ends in 4 weeks, you're going to horse that chocolate into you, and you're going to kind of, all your progress is going to be ruined essentially. So kind of just, I eat chocolate every single day, like twice a day, like, because like I like it and I'm not going to deprive myself of it, you know. So I find people tend to get too fixated on eating healthily, and that can often lead to struggling to hit that target, instead of just listening to what they want. Some nights you'll just want to eat that.
I'm definitely on the same page. Last night I had a small pack of Maltesers and a chocolate and peanut butter protein shake. Hit my calories, hit my macros, job done. Exactly. Another good question here from Eamon. He's asking, are protein bars like Fulfill, etc., a yes or a no for after workout? Should you stick to the powder and other food sources, or are the protein bars a good source after a workout?
Okay. So we're probably going to sound a bit contradictory here, because we're saying eat what you want, but at the same time, there are definitely better versions of things to eat. So Fulfill, as a classic example, don't have the best quality protein in them. So even though they advertise as having, 20 grams per bar or something, only 12 grams of that, even less, are actually good quality protein. The rest is kind of like other random sources. So the likes of Quest bars, I know they don't taste as great, but they're pretty much all good quality protein. So they would be optimum. But in that ilk, don't reach for a protein bar as a pre-workout, as a post-workout every time. Protein bars are kind of meant to be, if you're really, really stuck, you're on the road, say, and you want to kind of horse some protein into you before you actually have your main meal when you get home, absolutely fine. Have that bar as a kind of in-between dinner snack, or an in-between breakfast and lunch snack, absolutely fine. But don't prioritize that as your source of protein post-workout, because it's just not as good quality as a single ingredient protein, or even a scoop of whey.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And again, it's back to the principles that we talk about, you know, getting your weekly calories, your daily protein, and sustainable eating. If you find at the start of a challenge that, you know, they're convenient because you're busy and they're working with you, get them in, you know, week 1, week 2, but then see if you can substitute that for maybe a better quality protein or a whole food. you know, so it will do it over time. I think the key with this for anyone who's like brand new, like we've got a lot of people who've worked with us before and they kind of know what they're doing, so they'll find it a bit easier. But if you're brand new, take it a step at a time. That's the key thing here. This is a question I just have from Tracy. It's one I could probably answer. So Ronan, you had something about well, actually, no, we had a chat about this earlier, Bridget, so I'll make you answer it. You had something about ZMA supplements on your Instagram for helping you sleep. Would this be the best supplements to help sleep? Is there anything else you recommend? So before I pass it over to Bridget, I generally am the best sleeper in the world. I take these zinc, magnesium, and B6 tablets. As I've noticed, they do improve my sleep. Like I'll fall asleep sooner, I'll sleep for longer. And rest and recovery is as important as your training and nutrition while doing a challenge or training for performance. But Bridget, earlier on, you were talking to me about some of the supplements you take. So it doesn't necessarily have to be ZMA tablets, but do you want to give the guys some insights?
Yeah, I'll actually just grab it. It's just here.
Cool. I'll keep you entertained while she's gone. Do a little dance. There you go. So zinc magnesium tablets, I actually got this off, it was a Blind Boy podcast. He talked about it first, and then I researched it and got onto the ZMA tablets. But whether it's the placebo effect or it's actually the zinc and magnesium in there that help me sleep, who knows? It works for me. I'd recommend giving it a try. But yeah, Bridget, other options?
So this is what I swear by. It's called MAG 365. You can get it in most, so I get the passion fruit flavor because the natural flavor is disgusting. But you basically just dissolve a little spoon into some hot water, fizzes up, throw some other water in, and then I just have it pre-bed about an hour before bed. As you said, it could be the placebo effect. So magnesium isn't a miracle worker. It isn't like it isn't like marketed as a sleep aid, but it's a muscle relaxant. So it essentially completely relaxes you. Which in turn kind of makes you feel like you can drift off to sleep and you can stay in a quite a solid sleep. So if you actually look up MAG 365, they're quite a small company. They have a really good explanation on their website as to how it actually works and what it does and whether it could be right for you or not. So I got it in, you know, those random health food shops on Camden Street. I got it in one of those. But you can get it in kind of Holland and Barrett and those kind of places. It lasts forever. It's about 20 quid, but it'll last forever. But yeah, no, anything with magnesium is good to have daily anyway, because you generally don't get as much of it from your food. So it is something that, I mean, you shouldn't just supplement everything. You know, you should consult a doctor if you want to actually start supplementing properly, but it is the one supplement that people don't get enough through their food. So it isn't really much harm to supplement it.
I think the other thing as well, supplementation aside, is just your daily practice of what you do before you go to bed. So like switching on. I'm really bad at this sometimes, but like switching off your phone, turning the light down on your phone if you're going to be on your phone, turning your lights off in the house, like having a nighttime routine. Like many of us have a daytime routine that we do. We have a work routine, we have a fitness routine, but we don't actually have a sleep routine. And finding that sleep routine can be really helpful. Like I know if I read books, probably because I'm fucking dyslexic, so I find it really hard, I'll just get so tired so quickly. So like if I want to go to sleep, I'll like read a book, I'll make sure the lights are off my room, I'll not check my phone, all that sort of stuff. I've started setting alarm on my phone now in the evening time or nighttime, saying that, you know, you've got an hour until you go to bed, so I can start doing my wind down process. So think about your nighttime routine, because sleep is as important. Yeah. So a last question I think we have here, and then we'll leave it for today. Next week we'll do a little bit more on the protein, even though we did loads of protein today. But Elisa, who was saying she's struggling with her deficit, maybe not as true as we initially thought. Let's have a look here. How accurate do you have to be with your food diary in terms of dressings or like cooking with oil and or butter? Looks like someone's sneaking in the calories after all. Give us the lowdown, Bridget.
You know what? I've actually had someone ask the same question about struggling to hit their deficit. And I was like, not in this challenge or not connected to movement or anything, but I wrote back and just said, well, I've just looked at your food diary and I can't see anything that you're cooking with. Like, what do you use to cook? And they were like, oh, coconut oil. And I was like, are you measuring that? Like, that's so calorie dense. And they're like, no. And like, so 1 tablespoon of olive oil is, I think, 123 calories. Like, so just think about that. You could have a 400 calorie meal throw some oil into the pan, probably throw more than 1 tablespoon into the pan, and suddenly that's a 600 calorie meal, do you know? So you kind of, yeah, it's really important to measure your fats, which that is what they are. So your olive oils, your butters, coconut oil. And so coconut oil is a saturated fat, so it can be eaten but slightly more sparingly than the likes of olive oil, which is a slightly better fat. So all you need is 1 tablespoon for each meal, you know, or even 2 teaspoons, you know, you don't have to go much higher than that. I think when you start logging your oil, you'll start to use it more sparingly because you'll realize how calorie dense it is. But yeah, no, if you are struggling to hit your calories, then throw the oil in there, and that will definitely make you hit your target for the day.
Yeah, 100%. The first time I ever did like a muscle gain thing, the personal trainer I was working with when I worked in the nutrition gym, he was like, man, just get your good fats in, your oils, hit your protein target, you'll be fine. And like the difference after 2 weeks in terms of my muscle size and growth was huge after 2 weeks. I've also had a client in the past before who's same scenario as you, Bridget, there. I was like, your food diary looks perfect. I was like, are you making your food yourself? Because like her measurements hadn't gone down as we'd expected. And she was like, no, actually my dad does. And I was like, well, how does he cook it? And it turned out her dad was a chef and was, you know, cooking with like really rich oils and butters and stuff like that. And that was actually killing the progress because of all these extra calories that weren't accounted for. So really good question, Alicia. I'm glad you asked that. So yeah, 100% track your oils and your butters and stuff. You may be closer to your calorie target than you think. We'll try with the protein. Little tip on the protein, week 3, guys. So week 2, we now have the protein project. That's where you're going to try and hit 40% of your protein. Week 3, you're going to figure out the average protein. And that's going to be your sustainable protein amount that we're going to aim for, but we'll cover that in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, that was all the questions we have for now. So we're going to jump off there, guys. This will be recorded and put online on the app. There's a few workouts that need to go up there as well. I'll be on the members section of the website. Bridget, a big thank you very much for today. Any parting thoughts or wisdom you want to leave us with?
I'm just jealous of your little setup, and I'm going to get outside now.
Good. Okay. Everyone get outside. There you go.
No, in terms of the actual challenge, I know you pointed this out in your video, but just make sure you just log food that you're used to eating. Otherwise, and just work out how many calories are in what you like. So say if you have a 16,000 calorie target for the day and you log your breakfast that you eat every single day and you're like, oh God, it's 800 calories. You only have 800 calories left for the other 2 meals. So just kind of think, would I prefer to use more calories at dinner, or would I prefer to reduce my breakfast a little bit or take out a few components? But do eat as you normally would, because it will be the most sustainable thing. Don't reinvent the wheel and start like suddenly having like green shakes for every meal just because you feel like you have to. Fat loss is literally just a deficit. You could eat, I know this is a really bad thing to say because some people actually do take this really seriously, but you could generally eat like 10 magnums a day and still stay in a deficit and still lose fat. You know, like the quality of the food is good from a health perspective, but from a fat loss perspective, you can really eat as you normally would or whatever you want. So yeah, I suppose that would be my parting tip.
Excellent. Fantastic parting wisdom. I'm going to go get myself a Magnum now because of that. But I'll log it in my MyFitnessPal, so that's okay. Brilliant, guys. Thank you very much for joining in today. Thanks very much to Bridget, and we'll see you again for this next week, but this is recorded and we'll pop this up online later on. Chat to you later, guys. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Bye.